Hi everybody, and my name is Mark, and this morning I'm going to talk a little bit about my sketch diary I did while I was on a holiday cruise to Alaska. So this takes the form, I'll put the images on this side of the screen so you're not looking at me, because no one really wants to look at me, to be honest. And I'll go through the reasons why did some of these drawings. Now, we took a coach to Heathrow, so the first one here is of a coach scene. It's all made up, nothing like this actually happened, but it sticks in my mind and makes a bit more humour, shall we say. So you've got the coach coming around the corner, mean looking coach trying to get to the airport at the last minute. We were going to fly out the same day, but we decided to go the day before, so this kind of negated that. But this one was already in the frame, shall we say, so I sketched it out. Now, obviously, once you get to the airport and you'll go through the process of flying out, you've got security, and there's these guys, they all stand around, they always got their arms inside there. I don't know what it is about police, they always hold their arms inside their blooming, jackets. I don't know if they get cold or something, or it's just a reassurance thing to hold on to something, I don't know. But I thought, well, I'd do that one on this one. And there's a shifty looking character behind running across the airport, and which you see quite a few characters running across the airports that are late for various bits and pieces. And from there you've got the check-in desk, which, check-in's check-in. Put your bags on, and then where do the bags go? The bags disappear out the back. And I had this vision of absolute chaos, but we know it's not like that, because most of the time your bags end up where you go. So it's a lot more organised, but I thought this would make a bit more of a humorous depiction. And then from there you've got the security check-in desk, which security is, they're fairly security is they're fairly, straight sort of people. There's not much humour there, for understandable reasons. Now, wife goes through, no trouble at all. I go through, beep, 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 beep. Oh, what the hell? I've not got anything metallic on me, no belt or anything like that. No, they're looking at my shoes. Oh, what the hell's my shoes? My shoes are new. I've only had them for about a month. No, they got to go back through, and they got to be scanned separately. Nothing wrong with them. So got to put my foot on the thing. And this depiction kind of has me like, with smelly feet. Does happen. And the dog falling over half dead, and the person sort of leaning back with an alert on your feet. Didn't happen, of course. It just, nope, fine, carry on going through. But it made an interesting depiction. And then from there you go into like the duty-free zone, or the duty plus zone, as I tend to think of it. Obviously it's a sealed environment, people wandering around looking for various bits and pieces. And I'm not buying anything there, because the prices I think are more expensive than the outside, but people seem to think it's cheaper. Maybe it is, I don't know. So I got my little depiction here of a guy pushing his trolley around, picking up his beers and wines and what have you, and there's watches in the background, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, the next scene I've got is you sit in this big waiting area, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of people milling around. And of course I'm sat down, wife's gone off to look around at the shops, which is fair enough. You're going to be there for a couple of hours, you may as well entertain yourself. And various people coming and going, sitting down, different nationalities, different races. And there's a woman sitting down opposite me, and she's and I'm thinking, you know what that's going to mean? That's going to mean I'm going to get a cold. By Sunday I'll be coughing and spluttering. So we flew out on a Friday, so we've got a couple of days for this to incubate. So by Sunday evening, Monday morning, I'll be coughing, you betcha. More on that later. So once we sat there, and you look at the board, and you can see your departure gate that your plane's going to fly from. And then you go along to your departure gate, and from there I can see the plane sat outside, which obviously is helpful. And the plane is a Delta, and they've got like a little black painted area around the cockpit. And I thought, it looks a bit like a raccoon, like, the mask. So that's where these next few images came from. So you've got the check-in desk before you get on, and then you've got the plane on the runway, and he's powering the throttle up to get enough speed to get off the ground. And I've turned it into like a little face with a little you know, mouth, corner of the mouth divot, that kind of thing. Just to add a bit of humour to it. And then, boom, you're off. And I've been watching air crash investigations. I find them fascinating, but on the media pack they didn't have that. But I thought, well, I'd put it up as a drawing anyway, even though they didn't. I can't imagine why they don't, but well, you can imagine. So the next scene, you got the plane flying along, and it was mostly trouble-free. We flew up across the north of Scotland, bottom of sort of Iceland, Greenland, top of Canada, down towards Seattle, and it's a 9-hour flight, so you've got plenty of time to sit through various films with the entertainment thing. Entertainment package on Delta I thought was good. That was one brilliant thing. Some of the old films, but there's some new films as well, and the food was good and the service was good, so yeah, big thumbs up to Delta on that one. Many thanks for that. Made the flight a lot more endurable, shall we say. And then obviously you're coming into land, and I've got 2 more drawings there where you've got the plane coming in, and it's sort of like brakes on, got to try and stop, anchor thrown out the back, all fictitious of course, but hey, it made for a drawing. And then from there you've got the the immigration desk, the immigration guy, and he was very bland. It was almost like he's had a character transplant, which I understand. So we go through the usual questions: where you're staying, what you're doing, where you're going, that kind of stuff. And then he's pointing the machine for me, and I think, oh, what's he pointing at? I'd never been to America before, so I didn't know about the fingerprint scan. So once I got it, it was okay. That was sorted. Bye, and he's on to his next person. So that was okay in a way, I suppose. So we travelled into Seattle by Uber, stayed in a hotel. Next morning, wake up, and outside you've got the Needle. Can't believe that was made in 1962. It's an amazing structure. And we pre-booked a couple of tickets, so my next drawing is up there with me with my little 365 camera, trying to look, you know, trying to get some photos, trying to get some memories, that kind of stuff. And a little drawing ensued from that. From there we then did the glass exhibition, the monorail, and we went down and saw the fish market and what have you, but I didn't really do much of those, or any drawings of those. By this time, I'm starting to feel a bit like a tickle in the throat. I'm thinking, yeah, is this something? Is it? Sunday evening, staying in the hotel, we went out for a walk, and on the way back, we stopped at a garage to get some chips, crisps, as we call them in the UK, and a bottle of water, and this big American car pulls up, convertible. It's a massive thing, it's huge, and the guy inside was very bubbly, shall we say, and we had a quick chat and talking about you won't get those in the UK because we can't afford the fuel to run the things, and I think it was doing about 15 to 20 to the gallon, so that's the reason why we don't get them in the UK, because we couldn't afford the petrol. But that was an interesting experience, and then we went back to the hotel overnight, and the next morning we're down to get on board the ship. Now that's an interesting experience. Most of the times I've been on cruises, and you get to the port, you go through the process, go through security, blah, 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 and then you walk on the ship. I was expecting very much the same. Not in this case. We dropped our case off, so that went into its separate bit to do whatever it needs to do, scanned and what have you. When went into the boarding and doing the check-in, yeah, went through there okay. Security, yeah, went through there okay. And then you follow this little corridor around, and you end up in this big room full of people. You're like, okay, there's a couple hundred people in here. That's fair enough. Maybe they're just going to shunt us through in the next few minutes. I suppose we sat there about 10 minutes or so, and the wife used the restroom, and then she comes back, and there's another room full of people. So that's where I've got this drawing of like, you've got to be kidding from, because I'm not used to that experience. I'm used to the experience where you do your check-in and you get on board the ship. You don't stand waiting in the rooms to get on, but that's normally a different cruise line, different boarding process, which is fair enough. And from there we get on board the ship, do the lifeboat station, that kind of thing, meet up with daughter and have a coffee, cake, bit of lunch and what have you. Then you get called and say, your rooms are available. So we head down to deck 5, which ours is on, and it's got this panoramic window, which is obscured by a curtain. Wonder why. Go in there, put our bags down. open the curtain, and that's where this drawing comes in, because it was literally like that. It was just opaque window. And you're like, okay, is this a bathroom? Is it supposed to be frosted? So I'm thinking, well, hang on a sec. You've come halfway around the world. You're going to Alaska. You want to see the sights. And you've got a frosted window. Okay. So we had a little chat with the service people, and that's where this drawing came from. But ultimately, there were one or two people who were unfortunate, couldn't get on their cruise or whatever, so a couple of spare cabins available, and they swapped us over, which was okay. It was a slightly smaller cabin than what we'd opted for, but it was all right. So we got a view. That was the main thing. Happy days. But by which time, I'm in cold syndrome. I have a cough and cold now, so can't smell anything, I'm bunged up, I got a headache. Oh, great. So I come halfway around the world, it's cost a ton of money, and I'm going to be down with a cold. So I wasn't happy about that. So at least I had a day at sea for the next day. So that was 2 days I could kill where hopefully the cold would start to work its way through. So by the first port we get into, Ketchikan, I'm still bunged up. But Ketchikan is, the ship docks outside Ketchikan. Well, why is that? Obviously that's a reason between the cruise line and the Ketchikan authorities. I don't know, size of the ship, who knows. But you get a bus. So you go through this sort of warehouse bit, which was an old pulp mill. And then you get on the bus. I thought, well, the bus has got to make an appearance because it's like an old American school bus. So that's got to go on my drawing ship. So that's where that came from. Sorry I spelled Ketchikan wrong in a number of places. That was my fault. No offence to anybody in Ketchikan. So we go in and we get off, and when we're walking around the town, and the first thing I see is this Blues and Twos, large as life fire engine. And lovely thing, come hurtling up the street. So I'm videoing that and thought, that's got to be a drawing. That's got to be cool. So I put that in, and that's one of my drawings. So that's a nice memorable thing. And then we stopped off at Creek Street and had a coffee. I can't smell anything, so I can't smell the fact there's dead fish on the bank of the creek. No, I'm okay with that. We then had a wander up Creek Street, saw some sea lions after the fish, or seals, whatever they are. Saw some fish in the water. Didn't see any bears, but somebody else did. Somebody caught a video of bears, so I put grrr on my drawing. And then we came back, we had a spot of lunch, and we got back on the ship, and that day was over. And then the next day we were in Icy Strait Point. Now, Icy Strait Point, I didn't get it to start with. You turn up at this little dock and you just trees. So, oh, okay. And we planned to go for a walk, so we get off the ship. Where the footpath trek was closed. Somebody'd seen a bear, so okay, got to change your plan. So from there, we ended up using a cable car over to where the cannery is. There's an old salmon fishing cannery there, and it's been turned into kind of like a craft gift area, that kind of thing, where you can walk, do a bit of exploring. So we got a big queue of people to get on the chairlift, and that's where this drawing comes in. It's kind of an exaggeration because some people weren't that big, but it made it a drawing. And then over to the other side, we found there was a squirrel, and he's on the handrail of the boardwalk, and the people are feeding him, and he's quite happy. Yeah, this is cool. Long way at last, taking the food and nipping off to wherever his little store was and storing the food, and then come back and getting some more. And the cannery is got a little museum there. There's a donut bar outside which serves amazing donuts, but I still can't taste much, smell much, so half of it was lost on me, to be honest. And then on the way back, we noticed this person taking a picture of up against this house window, and that's the house of people who work there, so that was a bit of a cheek. And then inside the window was this massive cat. I mean, it's obviously, somebody said, oh, it's a Maine Coon cat, so it's bigger. Yeah, it was bigger, like 4 times the size of your average moggy we get in the UK. But he was beautiful, and he was just sunbathing, so I thought, yep, that's another image. So that's why I've got that one in. And also there's you know, there's other bits and pieces there. You can wander around at Icy Stray Point. There's a couple of old sort of derelict boats, fishing boats there, so they made it as a drawing. And then gradually you sort of walk a path back and you get back on the ship, and that day is done. And then next stop we were at was Juneau. I got there in the end. Brain's getting a bit fogged. And that was our whale watching, trail walking day. So that was kind of, by this point, a few days have gone by. My cold's lifting. I'm gradually getting better, which is cool. I'm actually going to enjoy the rest of the trip. Plus, I'll have some degree of immunity from what anybody else might have. And we're waiting at the dockside, and this minibus turns up, and the tour guide gets off, and she's full of life and energy and really hyping us up, which is good because most of us are old, a bit wobbly, but you know, talks us through the trip to the dockside where we're going to get on the small boat, and says, hey, when we get there, this is where the next drawing comes in. These are the last restrooms. If you want to go, use these restrooms. And she talks a little bit about the restroom on the boat that we're going to be on. And I thought, well, this can't be that bad. It was. So definitely use the restroom. So that was a great bit of advice, because the restroom on the boat you wouldn't want to use. It's like half height. So everyone can kind of see you sat there. That's what I'm guessing. I wouldn't want to be in there. So did we see some whales? Yeah, we saw a little bit of whales. Obviously, it's nature. You can't plan nature. It just does what it does. But we did see a whale. So it just was rather ironic clip that the guy in charge of the boat was saying, okay, the whale's gone. You won't see it for a few minutes now. And the next second pops up and it comes back down again. So yeah, that's nature for you. Then we dropped off at the beach, and there was other restrooms there, and a few people dashed off to use those, understandably. And we did a little trek around like a ranger trail. It was a circular loop, but it was good because you get to see some of the flora and fauna. And on the way back, our guide, she found a little toad, tiny little toad, about an inch long, and he wasn't alone. So we picked her up, he fell off. She picked her up, he jumped off. So she picked it up again, and like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know what that is. But she'd probably have found out by now. But there were quite a few of them around. So obviously, perhaps the warmth of the season, there was a glut of these little toads. But yeah, that was cute. And then from there, that sort of used up most of the day. We were then back to Juneau and back on the ship. And our next port of call was Skagway. Now, if you've ever been to Skagway, its main thing is the White Pass. It was like the old gold trail. And there's a train that you can ride that goes up to like a loop and then comes back down again. And my wife decided that she was going to have a day with her daughter and they were going to do a walk. Okay, I'll get on the train. So when I got off the ship at 8 o'clock, looked up, low level cloud. It was really low. So I was like, oh, okay. That means you get on the train, all you're going to see is fog. I thought, well, that's not going to waste, $50, $60 on that. And I quickly downloaded a guide, and there was like Reed's Lower Falls, end of town. I thought, oh, okay. Wasn't expecting it to be a big town, so that's not going to be far to walk. So I saw the train, I did a drawing of the train. That's why you've got that drawing with a grrr bear that we never saw. It's about 1.5 miles, 1.75 miles long. You've got to go up to 23rd Avenue, and and you start at 0. So I got there, and then he says, walk across the back of the railway yard. Oh, okay, a bit, out in the middle of nowhere. But sure enough, a couple of coaches went past, so I was on the right trail. And then you get to the cemetery, and the Gold Rush Cemetery or whatever it is. Big gold rock there. And then several graves, many graves. I think there's about 60 odd graves there. And they all died young. They're all like 30, 35, 23, that kind of stuff, which is kind of scary in a way. But I guess that's how it was back in the late 1800s. Your life was measured in just a few years rather than many. So I did a little depiction there of, because it was like, well, okay, September, it'll be Halloween next month. So I did like the finger pointing out the ground saying, this that way, you idiot, kind of thing. And yeah, the falls are literally 100 yards away. So another drawing of that, can't quite capture that because that was massive. It wasn't just like a single drop waterfall. it was a multi-step waterfall. It just carried on going up. You couldn't see the end of it. And there was a cave there on the other side, and obviously there was a tour bus there, and people, and there was a guy saying, oh yeah, well, a few years ago there was a bear in there, so you had to like block people off so you couldn't come up here. And, oh yeah, I can kind of believe it. It's definitely bear size, it's a human size, but the water was, you know, coming down there, and the guy was saying when you get the thaw, that water torrent is really large. I mean, it was like wasn't a stream, it was still a river, but it obviously got bigger. So that's where that drawing came from. So from there I walked back into Skagway, went into some of the shops that were open by then, because they don't open when I usually get off, and trawling around some of these shops. And one of the places I went into just to buy a couple of like postcards and what have you, the assistant was definitely not into the job. It's just like, so I thought, yep, you're going on a drawing as well. So that's why that one's got the sort of like sour face, memorable things. So paid that money, got back on the ship, and enjoyed the rest of the afternoon with a couple of beers. And then the next day we were off to icy Glacier Bay. Let me get it right, Glacier Bay. And that was totally unexpected. I had no preconceptions of what that was going to be about. I hadn't looked at it or whatever. And it was awesome. It was absolutely incredible. My drawing here just does not do it justice. So I'll put up a photograph as well, because it was absolutely incredible. Literally a whole day cruising up this waterway. And it turns around at the far end where you've got the glacier, and there's several glacier and inlets on the way up there, and then you're coming back out, and as you're coming out you see these little black things in the water, like, oh, what are they? And they're otters, and they're literally just lying on their back in a cluster, and they got their paws in the air, feet in the air, and they're just like, oh, ship coming, bloop, and they're gone. And they're so cute. And nature just presents you with little images, data all the way along. So I had to include a little one, like, and he's chucking this pebble. I'm sure it didn't happen, but you can kind of imagine it. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. And then from there we stopped off. Last port of call was Victoria in Canada, and I couldn't do anything for that really, other than just do a little sketch of a house, because the houses I thought were fabulous, made of wood, well maintained. They looked absolutely beautiful. And we had a walk around Victoria. Of course, you're only there for a few hours before you're off again. Went into the gift shops and had something to eat, back on board, and then your next port of call back into Seattle. And from there it was we got off, did a little bit of shopping again, then we got in a taxi and we're over to the airport. The airport was a surprise, because there seemed to be an awful large number of mobility scooters, wheelchairs going hither and thither. There just seemed to be more than I normally see. I don't know whether it's just the age bracket of people who live in Seattle or visit Seattle. I don't know. It was memorable, so that's why I've got a little drawing of that now. Sticks in the mind, strange things. And then we were flying back through Virgin. We upgraded the flight back, so we were in first class, what you want to call it, which gave us access to the Delta One lounge, whatever, I don't know. But the same sort of images with the flight coming back. You've got the bang to get down the runway to get in the airborne, and then obviously when you get back to Heathrow 9-10 hours later, knackered, you've got the all brakes on to try and stop before you fall off the end of the runway when you get back at Heathrow. Not quite like that, but that's how I've depicted it. And then from there, we got back and we had a couple of hours to kill, so we sat around in the airport, and then we've finally get the coach to go back to Cardiff. Coach driver's late because there's a tube strike. Hey, welcome back to the UK. Somebody's on strike. What a surprise. Coach got us back, no trouble at all. And then final trip of the journey was then in a taxi to get us the last 15 miles. So taxis are usually pretty much this way, that way, boom, 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 they get there. So that's why you got that depiction. But that is pretty much all the drawings I did. So I think I've crammed a lot into that trip. I mean, I'm left in good health, had a cold prior to getting on the ship and during the first few days of the ship. Still managed to punch out around about 25 sketches, so I think that's pretty good going. It's amused me, kept me entertained when, you know, there was a little bit of downtime. It's a little keepsake for the future when I can, you know, if I go a bit batty, go a bit doolally with dementia or whatever, someone can thrust this in front of me and say, do you remember when? So yeah, a little personal keepsake. So that's partly the reason why I did it. So was it a waste of time? Probably. Would it be of any benefit to me in the future? Who knows? Who cares? But it's done. So there we go. If you got this far, then amazing. Give yourself a house point. Give yourself a cup of tea, because that's what I'm going to do now, because this one's cold. Catch you later.